get into acting, and how did you become part of the Star Wars universe?
I was 7 years old in 1977, and so I was really, my whole imagination was ignited, just like all of us, when I saw the first, yes, R2, we'll get to you. I always wanted to be an actor, but I didn't know how I would be able to accomplish that. So, when I was 30 years old, I started building costumes and coming to Comic-Cons in costume. After I'd been doing that for 6 years, I joined the 501st in 2000, and my number is TK409. It took me 3 years. I built a C-3PO costume back in 2006, and up until that point, I hadn't seen any, shiny droids like this as a costume. And Lucasfilm saw a short video clip of me doing the animation as C-3PO and doing the voice. So they asked me to come in for an audition.
Wow,
that's cool.
Yeah, so they bolt you all together. Can't get out of this by yourself. And they flip on the sound system and turn on the lights. And I said, oh, my goodness, why hello, I am C-3PO, Human Cyborg Relations. I am fluent in over 6 million forms of communication. And this signal is not used by, and then they're like, okay, that's enough. Well, thankfully, there's a lot of footage of Anthony Daniels as C-3PO. And so you just study that. It's a very specific, it's not the robot, like, we might see, people doing a dance. It's a very specific set of animation. The way that Anthony Daniels describes it is every limb is separate from each other. So arms are separate from the body, and the head is separate from the body. And all the motion, every motion has a termination at the end. And so that was part of it. He's very helpful, and he's been lovely to me as our careers have overlapped. And so then, while we were on set, we talk casually on set about things and what we do for fun. And I mentioned that I had been building droids for fun, and they said, "Could you build one for us?" And then it turned out to be 20.
Wow!
So I build all the droids that I wear, and except for Zero. Zero was done by Legacy Effects. And so that's why I get to take home some cool costumes. C-3PO is always a fish out of water. He's always not where he's supposed to be, often. And so he's very frantic and agitated and concerned, whereas, say, the teacher droid in Mandalorian Season 2, she is exactly where she's supposed to be. So all of her movements are very calm, and she's pointing to the star map and gesturing to the class. She has a very calm set of movements. We've never seen 4-LOM in action except for in the comic books. Well, I was just doing what I wanted to see, as a fan of 4-LOM. So I played him like a grasshopper. Like when he's going through the streets, his arms are back like this because he wields 2 pistols. So I wanted him to look kind of like a grasshopper. So droids are like refrigerators in our world. Everybody has one. They look different. Sometimes they function better than others. But in the Star Wars galaxy, they're really common. And so you might see 2 that look really similar. That doesn't mean they are the same character. One example of that is in Navarro, there was a white protocol droid that is we call the tourism droid that I play that welcomes people to Navarro. And we were trying to figure out what color that one should be. And I'm a Star Wars nerd. I said, we haven't seen a white one since Empire Strikes Back. It might be cool to see a white one, like K-3PO on Hoth. And so it was decided that, yeah, that's a good idea, let's do white. So that's how that one got its color. But others, are from different ideas, different homages to previous films, or but as far as like how long is C-3PO gonna live, it depends on the writing, I guess. We know that George Lucas wanted to add the appearance of history to a character like C-3PO. So just like old cars or refrigerators, parts have been replaced. That's why he has a silver leg, but the actual story behind it is a story that's too terrible for C-3PO to handle. But R2 knows, and maybe one day he'll reveal it. The most painful part for Anthony, as he is described, has been the hard plastic shoes that he wore in A New Hope in Tunisia. Since then, we use different material that's a little more flexible, and that makes that a lot, because the weight of the legs rests on the ankles, so you want those to be a little more comfortable. So yeah, we've been able to make that a little more comfortable. They still look the same, they still chrome the same, but they feel better. They're not knifing into your feet. I do all my own stunts in the suits. There's not another guy who jumps in and is shot or blown up or disintegrated. And the first stunt I did was as the bartender droid in season 1 of The Mandalorian, where the joke is that I'm still delivering the drinks while there's this huge shootout, stormtroopers flying across tables and blaster bolts and everything, and the whole. I apologize if I'm going too fast.
Oh, you're
okay.
right with you.
The whole cantina, blows up. The first, the point was I was supposed to fall on a stunt pad. Okay, I rehearsed it with everybody 7 times, no problem, made it. It was fine. And then they light the whole setup, make it all live with pyro, and one of the stormtroopers decides to mix it up a little, and he spun around and bumped into me, and I lost my balance and I fell on the hard ground. And I thought that was the hardest day of filming, physically. The first couple of times I was on set, yes, you try to keep it all contained, but inside you're bubbling up with your 7-year-old energy. And the first time, there's an actor named Werner Herzog who plays the client, the remnant Imperial warlord who would like to see the baby. That guy. And he is this venerated director, actor, writer, and he was like our Alec Guinness, And so we're both standing next to each other watching a scene being filmed, and I'm up to my neck in droid costume, and I'm just so excited, but I'm playing it cool. And so I just try to be as cool as I can, and I just lean over and I go, "Isn't this exciting?" And he goes, "This is serious work. We are breathing life into characters which would not otherwise exist." That's just what I was thinking. I kind of wanted to create a feeling of we're all in Star Wars, so when a droid comes on set, that's really, I learned this from Rosario Dawson. She said, "This is such a vibe," to have the droid there. And so I was doing that, but it was also helping me to feel like, how would this character be in this environment and stuff. I was just a little bit of character rehearsal. So then I'd have that face on, I would go right into rehearsal for the scene with Carl. And after doing that a few times, Carl said,
"Chris, I want you to take off the mask."
No.
"Okay, Carl." He says, "I can hear your voice. I can hear the emotion. I want you to take off the mask so that you and I have an emotional connection, so that when you put the mask back on, I still see your face. So then, our characters will have an emotional connection." And I thought, he didn't have to do that. What a generous, amazing, giving man. And so that was such a gift, and I loved working with him so much. And then when we lost him so suddenly, it was just, it's like getting the most amazing Christmas present, and then someone taking it away. And so really miss him. We all do on set. Acting is a team sport. Good actors are not focused on making themselves the focus of the scene. A good actor will try and make your scene partner look as good as possible, just like Carl did with me. And so it's really such a pleasure to know these people. There was a time when we had to evacuate to the lava flats, and Carl's like, "Go, go, go!" And I'm like, "I'm going as fast does. It's like, and we go out, but leaving his office, as you go to the left, you go out the door and turn left. There's scaffolding and lighting and plugs and equipment and stuff. There's nowhere to go. So the first time I went, I can't see, and I just go left, and I'm crash, and you hear this big crash. Things are falling. I'm disoriented, and it's because Carl and I collided with all the equipment. And every time after that, he would rush out after me, but he'd grab my arm and keep me so I wouldn't go too far. That was really nice.
I have everyone here. Thank you so much for everything you do and all the joy you bring.
And just may the force be with you.
Played Rocky the Red Power Ranger and a Blue Zia Ranger. So thank you guys for coming to my panel about me.
So glad to have you here. This is your first time in Detroit?
Negative. This is my third time at Motor City Comic Con.
Oh wow, okay.
I've gotten beat.
Where haven't you been at this point?
That's very true. I've been all over the world now, visiting the fans, which thank you guys for that. Appreciate it. In 1997, that's when I left the show, and then for like 10 years, I was a ghost, man. Like, I mean, nobody cared about Power Rangers. No, like producers or casting directors cared to see us or anything like that. And slowly, little by little, you know, as the internet started getting, you know, more prominent, and then Comic-Con started getting bigger, and social media started evolving. I started to realize that we had this fan base that I didn't know that still existed, you know, so I thought it was kind of cool. And in 2007, I got an email and they were like, hey, we're gonna do this convention, this sort of meet and greet for fans. It's called Power Morphicon. Would you be down to come check it out? It's in LA, you live in LA, you know, we'll give you a hotel for the weekend and just come and meet the fans. And I was like, sure, I'll see what it's about. Now, I didn't know even what Comic-Con was or anything, you know? So to figure, oh, there's gonna be, you know, fans of Power Rangers? I didn't know we still had those. And I remember, I got to the hotel, it was in the...
You always had them, as you found out.
Yeah, right, yeah, I didn't know that the fan base was so strong. But I remember I walked into the lobby of the hotel when I went to go check in, and there were like, I don't know, it must have been 800 or 900 of you guys like just waiting in the line to go into the event that weekend. And as soon as I walked into the lobby, I just got a standing ovation. All the people were just clapping, and I was like, what in the heck is going on here, man? This is crazy. And then that ended up being like one of the best Comic-Cons that I ever did in this whole time. Because it was like all the fans were all there, and they rented out all the rooms in the entire hotel, and we had different ballrooms having different panels and then autograph sessions and all that stuff. But at night, it was like everybody was just partying, and everybody's hotel room doors were open, and we were just kind of walking around from hotel room to hotel room to hotel room, hanging out with all the fans, and just, you know, everybody got liquored up, and we just had a good time. It was like so fun, you know.
How did your path to this character begin?
Yeah, right. So I don't know. I'm just this phenomenal martial artist and gymnast. No, I was a martial artist and a gymnast and stuff like that. And you know, I grew up in Texas, and you know, I was my whole goal in my life was I wanted to be a martial arts instructor and own a martial arts studio, and you know, teach people what I learned from martial arts, because it changed my whole life for me. As a young kid, I was really bullied and stuff, and I used to watch movies like The Karate Kid, and I could really relate to a guy like that, you know. When I moved next door to a karate school, and you know, I didn't have the money to pay for martial arts, but I don't know how in my mind I thought of this, but I was an 11-year-old kid, and I was like, I went to the karate instructor, went to the head instructor of the school and I said, hey, look, I don't have money to pay for karate. My dad couldn't afford to pay for that. So I said, I'll clean your windows, I'll mop the floors, I'll clean the bathrooms and the studio and stuff in exchange for lessons. And I thought for sure the guy'd be like, nah, kid, get out of here, I'm not interested in that. But to my surprise, he was like, yeah, sure. You know, he goes, I'll take you on. So at that point, I was hooked, and I was there every day after school, and I was training and learning, and you know, it just did so much for my confidence, and you know, and I knew I wanted to pass that along. So that was basically my goal. I was like, I was going to be, you know, a martial arts instructor. I didn't have any aspirations to be an actor or be on TV or any of that stuff. I didn't even think that was attainable. We were living in Texas. We started, you know, getting a good kids program going there, and these kids start talking about this show called Power Rangers, and I'm like, I should check this show out and see what it's about. And then all of a sudden, I was like watching the show every day, you know, so I could talk to the kids about it and stuff. So we were listening to the radio, and this commercial came out. It's like, you know, we're holding something called an open casting call. If you guys are martial artists or gymnasts, you know anything about the Power Rangers, you need to come down to the local TV station in Dallas and try out for this, for an audition. It's open to anyone. So it was essentially kind of like American Idol was, you know? They had like 3 people sitting at a table, and then they had just thousands of people just, you know, out in the parking lot. And they would just give us like 30 seconds, you know, to show what we knew how to do. Sure enough, like 2 days later, they called me back. They called me back at like 7 o'clock in the morning, you know? Like, hello? And they're like, is this Steve? And I was like, yeah. They're like, hey, this is so-and-so from the casting director of Power Rangers. I was like, oh, hi. They were like, yeah, we really liked your audition. We want to fly you to California to meet the producers. So I went to the airport, and then they flew me out to California that day. And as soon as we landed, they picked us up in a car and brought us right to Saban Studios. And we literally like auditioned right for Haim Saban and Shuki Levy and a couple of the other producers right in their big, you know, office, you know, right in their office. So I just did martial arts routine and again and showed them some stuff, and then they were like, okay, now we're going to kind of pair you up with the people that we picked from other areas and whatnot. And so then that's when they matched Johnny and Karen and I together. So I always watch some of those first episodes that I was in. Very cringy to me to see myself on camera, and obviously back then too. You know, nowadays everybody's got cameras. You know what I mean? So everybody's used to seeing themselves on a camera and stuff like that. But back then, not so much. You know what I mean? Unless you had a home video recorder and you carried that big thing around with you all everywhere. You know, you didn't really see yourself on camera too much. And it's weird to hear your own voice and the sound of your own voice, and you know, the way you look on you know, when you're watching yourself back. It was an odd thing. It's funny that you know, back then, you guys, you know, as the fans, you know, you were all little, you know what I mean? And without social media, without a way to communicate, like the only way we'd ever get any kind of fan communication was through snail mail. You guys sent fan letters, that kind of stuff. If there ever was the opportunity that we got to meet you guys, you were so shy, you would just hide behind your mom when they would talk to us, you know? There was no way to, like, you know, really know like what the show meant until we started doing these kind of events, these kind of shows. And then you guys come up to the table and you're like, hey, you know, just when I was a kid, man, I had a really rough childhood growing up, and you know, that 30 minutes a day that your show came on, it was such a nice escape for me, and I just wanted to come and say thank you for that. I mean, it really means a lot, and that means a lot to us. So for me, I think that what's the coolest part is, you know, the fact that now you guys are all grown up and you're able to articulate what the show meant to you guys, you know, and it's like, for me, you know, that's invigorating for me as well too, you know, so that's what makes me want to continue to keep coming out and doing these kind of events and stuff. So, you know, I feel like we sort of have this like symbiotic kind of relationship, and you know, I'm very, very happy about that. You know, I just try to give back as much as I can because you guys have continued to support us, so I'm always grateful for that. To put on that red suit for the first time, you know, was pretty cool. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I was super stoked about that whole thing happening to me, you know? But what I thought was funny about it was they didn't bother to tailor a suit for me. They just gave me Austin's old suit, and since he was so much more muscular than me, they gave me a muscle suit to wear underneath it. So every time you see me in that red suit with the helmet off, that's Austin's old suit with a muscle suit underneath. So I was like, you want to make one that's custom for me? Like, nah, we'll just make a muscle suit for you. You look too skinny in that thing. I was like, okay, got it. So yeah, they did that for both Johnny and I, both. They gave us muscle suits. So I thought that was funny. I mean, I always love when they would bring us back to do reunion stuff. You know, I mean, like I said, for me it was, you know, I wanted to do those reunion shows because, you know, I want to give back to the fans. You know, and I know the fans love to see the cameos whenever we reprise our role. So I would do them anytime that they would ever ask me.
And how are you today?
No, I'm fine. I'm having a lovely time here. Lovely people, and I'm not just saying that, believe me. It's just a lovely experience. Yeah.
Is this your first time you've been to Motor City before, correct?
No, I've
No?
never been to Detroit in my life. No.
Wow.
So I'm fascinated. I only got in yesterday afternoon after a flight from London via Reykjavik in Iceland. So it's quite a trek. So I'm still a little behind everything, or in front, I don't know, you see. But anyway, here I am, delighted to be here. I didn't quite realise at the time, but I was a child in a small town in Scotland called Crieff, with a population of about 6,000. There were 2 cinemas, 2 movie houses. And so every Saturday afternoon, you went to the movies, that's what you did. And I wanted to be Danny Kaye, Jerry Lewis, Donald O'Connor, and those kinds of performers. It also came out of my family background, but everyone in the family danced and sang well, and at family parties, a very Scottish thing, you'd get up and you'd do your party piece, and nobody had to hold me back. I was 5 years old, and I did my first school play called Rumpelstiltskin, and had the starring role, of course, Rumpelstiltskin. And it was a point at which, in the story, he gets so angry, he stamps his foot and falls through the floor. Now, of course, we couldn't do that in the school gymnasium. So I stamped my foot and then walked off the stage as quickly as I could, and I got a huge laugh. And I went, oh, I think I might be funny. And so that kind of really planted a seed as well, and it never went away. It never went away. So when I was 17 years old, I was trying to get into this drama school thing, and I had no advice, I had no one to give me any advice. By some chance, I found a little amateur dramatic company who had a beautiful little Victorian theatre, stunning. And I joined this amateur dramatic company. I got a job selling carpets during the day. Or not selling carpets, actually. Just standing around trying to look interesting. But anyway, so the leading actor of that amateur dramatic company was a guy called Ian McDermott. Precisely. So I spent about 8 months there, and then Ian and I auditioned for Glasgow Drama School on the same day, at the same time. And we came out of the drama school onto the main street in the centre of Glasgow, had a chat, and then I watched him walk away up the street, and I thought, boy, I'll never see that guy again.
So, you were in Star Wars.
We're going back to 1976. I went to meet this guy, George, whatever his name was. He was seeing dozens of young actors for this movie he was going to do. And I met him in a chat in Soho in London, and that was that. That's interesting. But actually, that year was very interesting indeed. I did 2 movies in France, A Man in the Iron Mask, and another movie called, oh my God, John Goddard. No, it's gone. Oh, that's terrible. Anyway, I worked with some amazing actors on that movie. Dirk Bogarde, John Gielgud, Ellen Burstyn, and some extraordinary people. And then I came back to the UK and suddenly got a call to do this other thing. And well, yeah, okay, all right then. So off I went to Elstree, and that other thing was this Star Wars thing. Yeah.
So many years later, you're
Yeah.
still talking
Well,
about
it's insane. I mean, we didn't know what we were in. You know, I mean, I knew a lot of the other guys who were all young actors based in London, so I knew quite a lot of the guys in the movie anyway. But there was like maybe, let's say it was a 20-page sequence, a battle sequence, right? And George thought in his naivety that as an actor you could just take your lines over 20 pages and just say them one after the other. I said, George, no, that doesn't, you can't work. I said, tell you what to do, George. Say my line to me and I'll say it back to you. So he did. And then he would say, okay, say it faster. Okay, now look up there and say it. Look at the size of that thing. Look up there and say it. So that's how we did it, you know. It wasn't months and months later, felt like a year later, we sat down in a cinema, one of the big movie houses in the Leicester Square in London, and watched the cast and crew screening of Star Wars. And it was absolutely mind-blowing, as you can imagine, because we didn't know what we were in, and it was just extraordinary what they'd done with the material. You couldn't believe it. You couldn't believe it.
No, you didn't have the full script.
Oh God, no, we didn't have a whole script, no. So we didn't know what we were in that sense. We just did our stuff. Say it faster, look up there, say it, that's it. Yeah. So I had this, obviously, the scene where I danced with the Ewoks, right? So I'm getting ready, I have my helmet off. Wow, that's a thrill. And I'm getting ready to do the dance, and Harrison Ford came over to me. And he leaned in and touched my arm and went, "This is your big moment, Dennis." And that Harrison is I love Harrison's sense of humor, a very ironic sense of humor. That was very typical of what was going on at that point. You remember, I'm sure all of you, a particular sequence where we were being briefed for a battle by Admiral Akbar. It looked a bit like a lobster, didn't he? And we did this big scene, there was loads of us there, it took quite a long time. And finally they wrapped on the scene, and Mark Hamill marched onto the set and said, "Do you realise you've just been addressed by a prawn salad?" Just typical of Mark. It was very funny. As I said, the first one was extraordinary and gobsmacking, and then we did the other ones, and it was great fun, as you can tell. We had great fun doing them as we went along. No, I had no sense of that. No, it was quite, not at all.
Whether you realize it or not, you can see in the movies how your character gets more confident as, you know.
Wow, well, you're telling me something I don't know. Maybe that was just, actually that's, I think that's very interesting, because without me realizing it, perhaps I just got more and more confident in the role. I've not thought about that before. Thank you very much.